name is Grace Lee.
Hi, I'm Grace Lee.
My name is Grace Lee.
I'm Grace Lee.
Hi, my name is Grace Lee.
My name is Grace Lee.
This is Grace Lee.
Hi, my name is Grace Lee.
Hi, my name is Grace Lee.
Hi, my name is Grace Lee.
Aloha, my name is Grace Lee.
Hi, my name is Grace Lee, and this is my bunny, Bunyan.
My name is Grace Lee. I was born and raised in Columbia, Missouri, population 70,000. My parents immigrated from Korea in the early 1960s and eventually settled in the Midwest. I live in Los Angeles now, but when I tell people where I'm from, I'm usually met with puzzled stares. I mean, let's face it, when you think of someone from the Show Me State, you think of someone like this, or a family like this. You don't think of my family. Which is why I always thought I was unique. For most of my life, I was used to being the only Asian girl for miles. Well, that's if you don't count my sister. I was conscious of how I was different, but being different wasn't a bad thing. I was proud to be an original. It wasn't until I left the Midwest that I realized I wasn't unique at all. I was constantly meeting people who already knew another Grace Lee, and their recollections always went something like this.
The Grace Lee I know is a valedictorian in my high school, also prom queen. I think she was either studying law or medicine.
She's very intelligent.
She was really smart.
Very intelligent. She played the clarinet.
Like she was just like the nicest girl.
She's nice and she's smart, but then she's kind of mean sometimes, but she's really nice.
She drives an Acura Integra.
She's quietly intense.
She was very quiet. She was very sweet. She had like really cute hair.
Almost every Grace Lee I ever met had an essence of purity to them.
I think there's a religiously Christian Grace Lee I knew eons ago.
But you know what's so funny? I have no idea what happened to her.
I haven't kept in touch with her.
Are you still in touch with her?
No, I didn't like her, so I...
Wherever she is, I hope she's doing well. Wherever you are.
Smart, nice, quiet, accomplished. Are all Grace Lees cut from the same cloth? I've heard of violin prodigies with my name, devout Christians, and girls who went to Harvard at age 16. Hearing about all these amazing Grace Lees made me wonder, what went wrong with me? My alma mater, the University of Missouri, is a far cry from the Ivy League. I suck at piano. I'm also a non-believer who's never had a 9-to-5 job. I've never had cute hair. So how did I wind up with a name that essentially makes me the one loser in a sorority of super Asians? There's really only one person who's to blame.
So, Mom? So why did you name...
interview now?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
So why did you name me Grace?
Because Grace is also like God's gift.
So when you named me Grace, did you know that it was a really popular name?
No, not at all. I thought I was the only person who named it.
So what did you think when you started?
I was shocked because everyone has the same idea. So that means I'm not very creative. That's what I figured out. Does it answer your question?
Did you think that we would ever be traumatized by our names, even though they were easy to pronounce?
Dramatized?
Traumatized. I've always been mistaken for these other Graces who are perfect people.
Oh, well, then you should be grateful for that too.
What, that I'm not perfect?
If you can't be perfect, at least you could be mistaken for someone who is perfect.
Yeah.
Say that again?
I can't stop thinking about this. I'm haunted by this image of thousands of Asian parents dooming their daughters to a life of perfect, accomplished sameness. But a name can't possibly dictate the kind of person you become, can it? Even I started thinking of Grace Lees as interchangeable drones until I realized, to my horror, that maybe that's the way people talk about me. But then, who is Grace Lee anyway? What happened to her? And why didn't anyone stay in touch with her? How can she be so impressive and so forgettable at the same time? I'm sick of speculating. I need to meet some living, breathing Grace Lees. They just might be the only ones who can understand what I've been going through. But how will I find them?
So,
Have a seat.
What can we find out about Grace Lee?
do you have anyone specific in mind, or?
In the LA phone book, there's only 3, but I know there must be more.
So we'll type in last name first, L-E-E, and first name Grace. Too many Grace Lees exist for this this search. I can narrow it to California if you want.
Okay.
Too many in California, over 500. I can narrow it to LA. Well, I got 314 hits. Kind of a youthful name, it looks like. May 73, 0076, 76, 76, January 61, December 70.
Aldo tracks down more than 2,000 Grace Lees, living in all 50 states. But these are women who have social security numbers and credit histories. What about the Grace Lees who have fallen through the cracks? Like the underage Grace Lees, or the Grace Lees who live outside of America? What about the Grace Lees who never paid their taxes? How will I find them? I can't possibly chase down every single Grace Lee, so I decide to go about this another way. With a simple click of the mouse, my message goes out. The response is overwhelming. Grace Lees contact me from all over the world. They're mostly from California and New York, but Grace Lees log in from places like Iowa City and Singapore, England, and the Cayman Islands.
I was a clumsy fat kid, and being named Grace seemed to me like a terrible curse.
Oh, my name is so common.
It's so like Christian-y.
It wasn't like Monica or
Emily or
Jennifer or Tiffany or Heather.
I think if I would have been named Tammy, it might have been different.
I love having the name Grace Lee.
Personally, I think it's a beautiful name.
People have commented that my name suits me. I think that's a real compliment.
As the project grows, people tell me about the famous Grace Lees out there, like this car dealer in Koreatown, Los Angeles. And this Grace Lee isn't exactly famous, but her son is. I also hear from this woman, who uses Grace Lee as her stage name. She's a cruise ship singer from the Philippines, and she sends me a copy of her demo tape. And finally, I'm able to meet a Grace Lee who's in the public eye.
Tests show the area, including the YPO soccer facility, is safe. Police are keeping an around-the-clock presence here in Hauula. Now, this plant has become a really big problem. Hi, my name is Grace Lee, and we're in the studio for KGMB 9 News. Growing up in Alabama, there weren't a lot of Koreans, not a lot of Korean Americans, families that were even near us. And one of the 2 girls that I grew up with, one was named Jennifer Kim and the other one was named Grace Lee. So I figured out pretty early that it wasn't the most original name.
The Grace Lee I know is a young, bright, energetic, intelligent woman who speaks very well, carries herself very well.
I have a background in international economics. I got my master's at George Washington at the International Affairs School. I realized I didn't really like it, so I wanted to kind of change fields, but I didn't know what to do. And it almost happened like spontaneously. Actually, I was having dinner with a friend of mine who said, you know, have you ever thought about going to broadcast news? And I was kind of like, no. For some reason, when she said it, I kind of thought about it, and I did a lot of research on it, and I took some classes, and I got an internship at the NBC station in Los Angeles. They hired me on at NBC, and then I got this job here at CBS, and it just kind of snowballed.
So this Grace Lee seems a lot like one of those Grace Lees. I mean, she's smart, she's successful, and she's really together. I can't help but be impressed by her, but also a little envious. She's got more important things to do with her life than worry about how other Grace Lees are making her look bad. The truth is, I'm intrigued by her because when I was in college, I wanted to be a reporter too. That is, until I worked at a newspaper one summer and realized just how hard it was.
There's so many things that go into TV news that it's very technical. It's always my face and it's always my voice, and so it's my responsibility. If I get something wrong or if someone doesn't like what I say, they'll call in. You know, and it's things from like, you know, I think you're wrong about this, or that's factually incorrect to, I don't like your hair. But then you also get really nice people who are like, oh, you're so pretty and, you're so good. You're kind of like, thanks. I think that's all my questions. Do you want me to ask him? Well, they're actually shooting a documentary here, and it's about women who are named Grace Lee, which is my name, and the filmmaker's name is named Grace Lee. They wanted me to ask you if you happen to know anyone who is named Grace Lee.
I know one Grace Lee. She actually sold me this, here, I'll show you. This phone right here.
Are you serious?
Yeah, Grace Lee sold me this phone.
By having such a common name, it's almost like you have to define yourself in another way, of being really memorable, because they're not really going to remember you for your name because it's so common and there's so many of you. So, hopefully, you always try to make an impression on people, Hopefully a good one. I'm Grace Lee. I'm with a CBS affiliate here. Especially in the realm of the news, there's so many Asian American women who are interested in it and are in it as reporters. And I think the challenge for me will be to separate myself from those women. If you stay in the mold of being a Korean American woman or what people expect of you as being really sweet and passive and whatever, it's like you're never gonna get anywhere. Reporting from Mazie Hirono's headquarters, Grace Lee, KGMB9 News.
So I guess news reporter Grace Lee is blissfully unencumbered by existential dread. But maybe I would be too if I lived in paradise. Back in Los Angeles, Grace Lees are still flooding my inbox. It's exciting on the one hand, but the more I hear from them, the more they start to blend together. Even I have a hard time telling them apart. In fact, after going through almost 200 surveys, a distinct portrait emerges from my not-so-scientific study. To begin, Grace Lee is American-born. She's of Korean ethnicity, and her parents are immigrants. She lives in California. She's 25 years old. She's heterosexual, single, and she averages 3.5 years of piano lessons. She's 5'3". She graduated from college and probably has a master's degree, at least. She has combination skin. Does any other name scream generic Asian girl more than Grace Lee? I even get this description of Grace Lee from other Grace Lees.
When I was in high school, I went to school with another Grace Lee.
She was nice. Nice. And quiet.
Quiet and smart.
I didn't know her very well, but she just looked like a typical Asian.
Very smart, very scholarly, educated, like good girls. So,
and you weren't one of those?
I was. I would say I'm more different.
I think people perceive me as different.
I didn't think we looked the same. I think we looked different.
After that, I decided to change the spelling of my name. I was a junior in high school, so I changed the spelling to Graise. I just felt like I didn't want to be confused with her. I didn't want people to think we were interchangeable.
So, we all think we're not that Grace Lee, but are we all just in denial? Is part of being Grace Lee insisting that we're not that Grace Lee? And are there any Grace Lees out there who actually broke the mold? Just as I'm drowning in a sea of seemingly interchangeable Grace Lees, I get a very interesting email.
My name is Donald Lee from San Francisco. The Grace Lee I know of tried to burn down my high school.
A Grace Lee who set her school on fire? Not a very Grace Lee thing to do.
When I saw the school on fire, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I mean, who doesn't, what kind of teenager wouldn't see their school on fire and say, oh my God, that's awesome.
It was a bit of a surprise. Two Asian students, in general, Grace too being the girl, it's kind of a shock. You tend to think, Chinese girls, they don't want to do anything, we're conservative.
Grace wasn't the kind of person that you would say, oh, truant, or bad person or, you know, evil doer. There are other ways to express your rebelliousness, like whatever, graffiti or cutting class. But I mean, this is like burning the school down. I mean, who doesn't want to do that, you know? This is like the ultimate way of saying F you to your school.
When I first hear the story, I picture a towering inferno, smoke billowing into the night sky, hordes of firefighters, an ecstatic student body watching the school burn to the ground.
Whatever they were trying to accomplish, it didn't really work because the hallway was just blackened out. But other than that, they didn't really get much of the school. Like none of this outside or even that gym or the other hallway down the way was even burned. It was just localized. It was pretty localized.
The defense for Grace was that she set fire to the office to get rid of something that was going to go to her parents that said something bad about her. But that the pressures of being an Asian American student in San Francisco was so high that she had to do it. There was no choice. It was just the pressure to be perfect.
Is that really what it was all about? The pressure to excel? Or is that just what people wanted to believe about a girl named Grace Lee? Grace remains elusive, but I tracked down Leland Yee, a California State Assembly member. At the time of the fire, he was on the San Francisco School Board, and he was the only person who voted not to expel her.
She was very clear as to why she was doing it. It was not because she was vengeful against the principal, she was vengeful against the school, but merely that, you know, she felt embarrassed about her academic performance.
My impression